I start with a 180 gram paper. I draw my drawing on it in pencil, and then I gesso over it to bound the graphite down to the paper. And sometimes I'll paint the face yellow, it just depends. And then I'll use a clear gesso over all of that to bring some grit to my painting, or to my surface. Here you see me adding the pigment. It's house pigment, house paint pigment is what I'm using, and I just love the texture, and I love the color and the deepness and the richness of this color. Is just incredible, and I love the way it mixes like water. And you're going to have to use acrylics to go over it, and you're going to need to also use like gessos to bound the pigment to your surface. Otherwise it's going to bleed off. If you get a little bit of water on it, it's just going to bleed everywhere. Here you see me adding water, and I take a paper towel, any paper towel, your old used paper towels or whatever, and clean it up to all the places that I don't want the blue to be. It's just to keep my face area clean. That's where I'm going to be doing. Now here you see I'm putting alcohol on the acrylic base pigment, and I think it's acrylic base, I'm not for sure. It's in French. I don't know what it's really saying. I just like the way it works. Now you see me putting gesso to start making my layers. And this process you're going to see a lot of. I'm going to do that often. Here you see me using Inktense pencils to outline for the first time my face. It's just so I don't lose my lines. I'll often do that too, so I don't lose it under all the layers of paint that I'm going to be putting on this. And how I do that is I pull the gesso with the pigment and make a nice little, it's kind of like watercolor, but it's a little thicker. And now you see that it's quite pinky like the first layer of her face. And now I'm adding gesso to the blue pigment. Like I told you, you need to put something down over this pigment so it can bind with something. And I'm using gesso at the moment. And now I'm looking at the picture to start getting an idea of how her hair is going to roll and curl, and the darks and lights of her hair. So what's going to happen is when I use my dark purples over this blue hair, it's going to be showing up the dark purples and not purple blue. Now I'm putting down my first layer of green, and I don't know why, but I always use green for all the eyes. It doesn't mean that she's going to be green at the end. It may be brown at the end of my picture, but I always put green down first. And I think it has something to do with complementary colors, that even if you have brown eyes, if you put brown will be greenish, I guess. I don't know. Here I'm tracing out the eyes in brown. It's a terracotta kind of brown pencil, and it's just to make it look more realistic. You'll see as I paint over it with gesso again. And you saw that I started drawing a little bit of the eyebrow and realized, oh, stop, don't draw eyebrows now, or you're going to have a heck of a time painting around it. Always do your eyebrows last. But I get, I shoot the gun there, and I'm on the, see I'm painting over the eyebrow again. Now I'm adding white gesso more, making my nose ridges lighters, darkers, the typical. Now here I made a mistake by I'm off maybe a centimeter on her nose, and it would be okay if you're just making someone that doesn't look like that person. But I'm looking at a photograph of an icon that's about the size of a postage stamp, and it seems like I may have made a mistake. So I'm going to have to paint over this lip mouth a lot with gesso and yellow paints. But this is just layering and layering, and what's going to happen is the surface is going to have beautiful brush strokes and texture, and it's just really going to be very rich with texture. I paint a lot with gesso. In fact, I think that's the color I use a lot besides the blue. And then I use light, watered down textures to go over it. So when you start seeing, when I start laying down more pigment, instead of just using white all the time, because at the moment, it's all you see is me doing is using white, you're going to notice that when I do paint, I'm painting with very, very thin, watery colors. Just adding a little at a time until I get the darkness that I use. But I don't know why I do that, but I do basically look at the picture and I paint with white. And then I come back and add the darks over my painted white. And that's why the blue background, it doesn't matter if it's a pigment that I use that's the universal pigment that you use for house paints, because I use so much gesso over it. So that's all I can explain to you why I do this method. It adds really nice brush strokes with the hair, and I use a lot of wipe off technique. So when you're wiping some color off, and in the grooves you're going to have the paint that you painted, and that's even another technique that I didn't, there's a lot of things I didn't realize that I was doing until I started making this video and noticed. I said, hey, that's what you're doing there. You're making you're making the paper rise up and putting a wipe off technique. Here we go again with the gesso, and more white, and it's pretty soon I'm probably going to do some yellow. Yep, there we go. Yellow, and more gesso. That's why I just sped through all this, but it's mostly, I think that I usually do this about 4 times, maybe less. It just depends. See, I did make a mistake on the nose, so maybe I'm over layering to cover up that mistake that I did on the nose. But I do a lot. Number one, all the layers of paint helps keep the paper from curling up. And number 2, it makes the paper itself become stronger itself when you start to handle it when it's all dry and finished. Okay, here I'm going to start doing the outlines in the hair. And you can't really see it yet until the water hits it. So, but you're still looking at your photograph, you're still following the contours of the picture. Though you can't see in this painting yet what I'm doing, but you will see it as soon as the water hits it, because all of these pigments that I'm putting down will start showing up. Now I'm changing to a purple, and you can see that it's starting to take more form of, there's a curl there under her eye, and going dark to light, and still watching, for making those curls. And at this point, if anything messes up, you can take water and remove it and dap it off with your paper towel. Nothing is permanent yet. I mean, there's no mistakes can be made at this point. Goes, oh my God, I got her curls all wrong. I can't get the hair right. Well, keep working it. What's another layer of gesso? Okay, in real time, this takes about maybe 15 to 20 minutes doing her hair. Oh, here comes the purple. Now I'm going to mix water and acrylic purple just right out of the tube and start building up that glassy color that I like to use, that watery acrylic look that I like. And you're starting to see it. You're starting to see the curls form. You're starting to see the dark lights working against each other. And now you can see why the gesso is starting. The gesso over the blue allows the purple to be purple and not absorbed by the blue and become a purple blue. That's what I was talking about earlier. To me, it took me a while to get this technique down. So it's looking nice, and I'm saying like 3 or 4 paintings I did before I finally got it right. Just work it, guys, until you can get that look that you like. You don't learn how to paint by watching a video and then just thinking you're going to pick up that paintbrush and that hand is going to know exactly what to do, because it doesn't happen. I mean, I can tell you, I watched a lot of videos, but it actually took my hands doing it over and over. And if you ever see my Facebook page, I've got close to about 70 people to get these techniques down, especially the texturing. That took some time. And as you see how how watery the color really is when I painted on my board. And again, I told you that from this part that you're watching me do, the hair part, that's around 15 to 20 minutes in real time, just doing her hair. And now again, here we go with the gesso on the face again. And maybe I'll probably do yellow pretty soon. I don't know how many times I'm going to do that. But maybe I should have cut that out. I thought I should videotape that because people don't really realize how many layers it took to build up her face. Because if not, she's going to have like a Bart Simpson kind of yellow if you don't build up the colors and work it out. And another thing I need to make if you see my paintbrush is one of those cheapy paintbrushes, because the layering and layering and layering, it tears your paintbrush up. Now here you see I'm adding gesso to the eyes to keep the eyes white so I don't lose my eyes. And I'm using a better brush. But I won't use that type of brush on putting gesso all over my faces to keep that texture going, because it tears your brush up really fast. It's like a 400 grade sandpaper. And when you're starting to use your brushes, wow, it really can tear the hair off your brush, I can tell you that. Here I'm using just a very light pink rosy pencil to put down my lines. And basically all it is, just so I can start getting the idea of where the lips and the nose are going to meet. And it's easy to wash this off. If you've made a mistake, it's easy to take a little bit of water and take that color right out of there.